Good afternoon. We are going to start.
We will be slowly starting the session related to what I call scoping net zero, scoping territory for net zero. We plan to have two online speakers. I'm not sure if André Torre is joining us, but I know Ellen van den Bueren is here. Ellen, do you hear us?
Good.
Can you repeat it, please?
Oh, I said that I hear you and we have a good connection. I'll turn off my volume. Is this better?
Perfect. Okay. And I also want to invite Yurii Poliianskyi, representative from the City Institute of Lviv, to take a place with me here offline. Yurii, if you... Great. So I think we should slowly start. Ellen, would you be so kind to share your screen? I think we would be kind to introduce you, the professor at TU Delft, today to launch this session. I think you can take more time than we discussed. So if you potentially have some more ideas at the end, or kind of you can go slowly, because I think we have lost one of the participants for the session. But if not, we still would like to have a longer discussion, and we would be really glad to hear more from you.
Yes, that's fine. Do you see my slides? Do you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you, but we don't see your slides yet. Maybe.
Oh, okay. Because I have it on. I will disconnect.
Okay, we see them. Yes, right now it works. Perfect.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. You can start.
Okay. Happy to be here with you for this very important topic on net zero, also in relation to circularity goals. And I want to share with you the work I've developed together with my colleagues Marcin Dabrowski, Karel van den Berghout, Joanna Williams in the past 2 years, I must say. We have developed a book for the Regional Studies Association, and it's called Going Circular. And I think this, I'm interested how you perceive this work on, it provides a critical look on circular economy and circular built environment ambitions, also in relation to the spatial perspective that we adopt or that we don't adopt, or less critically or not critically enough adopt. And I think this ties in with some of the criticism that you could say that accounts also for net zero ambitions. So I'm also very curious to hear your thoughts on this. But let me first present the work that we developed in this book, Going Circular. Now I need to move there is, the slide is moving, I think. Yeah, so the main message of our book is, mostly neglected as present, the consideration of spatial factors of scale and context in circular economy strategies and policies. They will determine the success of a circular transition at a sub-national level. So usually the circularity ambitions, they are often translated either in national policy goals or at European level, at European level formulated policy goals. But it's also at the subnational level that a lot of the circularity actions need to materialize. And that is also where they will have an effect, where they will impact people, they will impact places, they will impact local and regional economies. And that's often overlooked of how these circularity actions to close the loops, how they work out at a sub-national, more regional and local level. circular economy, so it doesn't happen in a vacuum. It occurs within distinct spatial settings. And here are just a few examples of such settings where circular economy is being shaped and takes place. So goods, waste flows, or potential waste flows, flows of goods, flows of materials, they need to move from A to B. They need to be exchanged. They need to be upgraded. They need to be processed. And that all happens in places. The spatial impacts and needs of circular activities, they need to be considered to address place-specific barriers for circular actions. So you can imagine that some circularity actions, they bring environmental impact on the local community, on the local environment. They bring them along. So there will also be, it will not be generally welcomed, these circularity embracing activities of circularity and supporting activities, as they are industrial activities like other economic activities. So current urban and regional policies promoting circularity, they tend to ignore this spatial context. They are often focused on the overall policy ambitions. But if there is no benefit to local environments, to local communities, then you might risk that the benefits that might potentially be there also on a local level and on a regional level might not be made use of. And the spatial understanding of what a circular economy is and what it implies on a spatial level in the various places, that remains a niche for now. So, for example, industrial ecology, its perspectives, they usually focus on, well, waste flows, flows of material, how waste of one can be the input for another, and how to connect it, these flows. But it often neglects what it requests on a local and regional level to do so, and if that is perhaps the smartest thing to do. And also, more ad hoc experimentation, like, well, this is the seminal example of the Kalundborg site. But often there are sort of, haphazard initiatives to connect flows, waste flows, to create an often very local opportunity, or unlock an opportunity that happens to be there without having the broader longer-term strategic outlook of what it means to connect these flows, but also to connect the sectors or industries that come along with those flows. So cities and regions, you could say they are caught in the circular buzz. It's very popular. It's very popular to be circular. But what does it mean, and how can we prevent that we create some fixes that might seem beneficial on the short term, but at the same time provide a lock-in as well? Because once you connect industries and waste flows, you also need to keep those streams alive. And this is, for example, what is happening in the Netherlands. I forgot to introduce myself, but I'm from Delft University of Technology in the Netherlands. And there we've got a very big petrochemical industry in the Rotterdam port. And we've created a very extensive heat grid connected to the petrochemical industry in the Rotterdam port, to provide our urban areas with sustainable energy, green energy, it is labeled. It's a very space, underground space, but also material intensive network that has been established. It's also long-term investments. So the business case of this heat grid easily extends to 50 to 80 years to make it worthwhile economically. And at the same time, we have now the situation that the economic prospects of the Rotterdam port, also due to geopolitical situations, is very much in decline and very much challenged. And the idea is to make it into a greener energy port, focusing on hydrogen, for example, to replace the petrochemical basis of the heat being produced for the urban environment surrounding the port area. That is being challenged now as well. So investors stop activities, they withdraw from the port. So we may end up having a highly expensive network and we may end up needing to invest in the petrochemical industry to sustain their activities in order to keep our houses warm. So these types of lock-ins and temporary fixes, they are not always the smartest thing to do from a truly circular economy point of view. And that is also what you see in this picture indicates this gap or trap, you could call it, between the ambitions that we have, but also the messy practice of going circular and choosing actions and making opportunistic use of the possibilities that come along. One of the things that also we saw was that the existing conceptual frameworks for circular economy, they are footloose and they neglect some very important questions that also have to do with the societal questions underlying our economy. They are, where do material flows, where do they come from and where do they go to? Who drives circular processes and for whom? And what does it take to steer, to govern the transition towards positive outcomes in terms of socioeconomic and environmental sustainability? And these questions, due to the opportunistic driven nature of current circular economy initiatives and actions, often are sidelined. Now, there are 5 principles of circular economy that we need to consider. And it is interesting that the 5th principle presented here, that has become the most prominent understanding in recent years of what a circular economy is about. So the first circle is on your left-hand side, that's the circular the closing of loops, the closing of material loops, resource loops. The second one is the need to slow down these loops. So whatever you produce, whatever materials or resources are in our cycle of production and consumption, we need to keep them as long as possible in a value as high as possible. We need to keep them in the loop to make best use of them. Then the middle one is that with everything we do, we should dematerialize and minimize the resource use, resources needed to use them. But also we should look to substitute the resources. So from the more fossil-based resources, for example, or resource intensive products or production ways of production, we should minimize them, but also substitute them, preferably by materials or bio-based materials. But then the most prominent understanding of going circular, and that has to do with many of the actions that have been taken to materialize the circular economy, they are on the local level, and in many European settings, circular economy has become a more of inward-looking phenomenon, focusing on how we can close the resource loops within a certain area. So we consider the area, for example, the city, because cities are often also having these circularity ambitions, or only one particular region. Let's try to connect the loops and make it a closed loop city or a closed loop region as much as possible. And that brings along other trade-offs as well, and perhaps also from an environmental point of view, not the most smart solutions. Also, it again focuses the attention especially on the material side of resource use, and less on the spatial implications, and also the implications that come along for local environments, groups of people, and certain industries. So then, some key concepts in the current thinking on circularity, circular built environment in relation to circular economy is the circular city, with this focus on the city as a closed loop system. But what we should more think of, instead of just considering at a closed loop system, we should also look at how is this system able to perpetuate itself. So what is the regenerative capacity of this system, and what is the adaptive capacity to adapt to the needs that we have from an economic point of view, and to what extent can we adapt to it so that we can also maintain our way of living, or a future way of living based on what the local context has to offer, without overloading it and without jeopardizing the socio-ecological system that is the basis for a city or a region. Also, on a regional level, you can have such an understanding. So a circular region, we defined it as a system of interdependencies and connections created by material flows between the different types of territories, nature, and the built environment actors and networks. And here again, this circular region, it should nurture regenerative natural cycles supported by these adapted socio-technical and socio-ecological systems. And in this way, structuring looped systems of material and energy within the regional space. So if we don't consider the socio-ecological basis of our urban and regional systems, then it will be impossible to maintain the livability and the prosperity on the longer term of such a place. Now there is this localism view on circular economy, where we try to close all the loops within a particular area. There might be a window of opportunity that has been created due to the geopolitical turmoil, we called it. But it's, of course, an understatement, given that you are in the midst of this geopolitical turmoil in Ukraine. But it has provided a wake-up call also for the rest of Europe to re-understand this localism view of a circular economy. So it might help to accelerate the transition to a circular economy, but also based not just on this localism perspective, but on a more regenerative regional perspective. And if we look at, well, the different scales at which we could consider a circular economy to be present, then we can see so product designers or producers, they usually focus on their own product, and that could be also perhaps on a bit of a bigger scale. A building could be considered also as a product. But there are also on what is it on a circular area region? Is it really the closed loop perspective, or are there more nuanced understandings of this circularity at regional level? It could be at a country level. This is the image of the contours of the Netherlands, but you could do it for all. Each country individually, or should you do it more on a regional, for example, European level, whereas it's also the question of, well, how to define where to put your system boundaries. What do you consider as Europe? Or same goes for if you take a beyond European perspective, what do you consider to be useful system boundaries? And should you use geographical boundaries? Should you use supply chain based boundaries? Should you use economic trade bloc boundaries? Or should you perhaps, which becomes more prominent now, regional safety and security boundaries, and boundaries of autonomy and independence? Up till now, this circularity dimension has been primarily more supply chain driven. But with the current situation in which we are, with the wars going on, with the geopolitical challenges that we put in, there is more and more push towards this sort of re-understanding of how we define our system boundaries, also geographically. So here is again these principles of the circular economy, and what we see this fifth emphasis on the localism. It has become very dominant, shutting our eyes to the opportunities of circular economy on a more regional scale. And it also brings along that we make very sub-optimized decisions also from an economic or political point of view, whereas the other four principles of using less, being more slowing down the loops, substituting resources, non-sustainable resources for more sustainable ones, they have been pushed to the background. Now, on an EU level, with the war in Ukraine going on and the political shifts globally in terms of trade, there has become, as it has contributed to a window of opportunity for circular economy to move it beyond this localism point of view. And in the independence and innovation agenda and the safety and security agenda, they will offer also a window of opportunity to reframe this circular economy in a European dimension. And here we put them together, that this localism point of view, it might act as a catalyst to shift from the very local view to a more national and EU wide view, or perhaps even beyond EU. formulated circularity understanding. So assessing these circular economy transitions, that turns out to be very challenging. And I think here we come to the connection with the net zero ambitions as well, which is also part of the focus of today's session. So there is a gap between the lofty ambitions of new circular policies put forward by cities and regions and the actual messiness of the transition processes, the move towards this circular reality. And how to assess whether we move to circularity and to what extent our actions make sense, or do we create sub-optimized realities that provide such a lock-in that we will never achieve a true circular economy. So these circular economy principles, they are often enthusiastically, but also a bit uncritically embraced. But they're also more focused on the old-fashioned linear thinking, replacing our emphasis or our wish to consume as we always did, or wish to continue our lifestyle as we always did, in a similar way, and by labeling it as circular, it doesn't bring about the necessary changes needed. Also, the net zero, their ambitions, there you see a similar opportunistic or opportunity for opportunistic understanding of impact, and it does allow, because of the technical understanding of ambitions, it's a very calculative way of thinking about sustainability ambitions. It might allow for trade-offs across places, skills, sectors, and people, because also here the spatial dimension might not always be appearing in the ambitions. So we lack the means for a sound measurement of the progress towards circular economy and the impact of circular actions. And so we might, it might become a bit of circularity washing of our actions. So circularity for circularity's sake, and the net zero ambitions, they might even reinforce that, or the circularity and the net zero ambitions might reinforce each other and might lead to a very technological understanding of these very broad societal and inclusive goals. I think I need to come to a wrap up as well. What we have formulated several policy recommendations for facilitating an urban and regional circular economy perspective. And it requires especially a place-based and critical approach to circular economy policy that considers the often overlooked social and political aspects as well of sustainability. So we need to move beyond the technical aspects of resource efficiency and waste management, and we need to incorporate the principles of regeneration, resilience, and justice. So in the book, and there is, I can also share my slides, but there are, we have come to a list of policy recommendations to support this shift towards an urban and regional circular economy. And well, it pushes for an integral approach, standardized approaches to collecting data, getting more. So the data collection does remain important, but we should be more standardized in that, in the sense that we are aware whenever it is used in a more strategic or opportunistic way that data are collected, that we are aware of that. So the development of new metrics that also capture the social, environmental, economic, and spatial dimensions. the development of a steering capacity for circular economy and circular economy transitions. It now often depends on, well, the sort of willingness, political willingness of those in power who happen to be focused on circularity. So cross-sectoral dialogues, how do circular actions in one sector or cross-sector, what lock-ins do they provide? What real opportunities do they provide over a longer period of time? And how do they spatially work out? But we mustn't also forget, if you think of all the 5 circles that we have identified, so also use the traditional instruments of governments like regulation, taxation, and finance. We often look in more complicated ways of governance, more voluntary-based ways of governance, more negotiation-based ways of governance, while these traditional instruments of government might be more fruitful to imply. There again, of course, a regional perspective also on EU-wide level and beyond might be very needed, but it doesn't need to have. We don't have to stay behind on national levels. So then circular economy could be a strategic backbone for integration of goals across relevant national policies. Develop visions and strategies that embrace circular economy as an important factor for national spatial development. So there are some more recommendations here. I think to conclude, it would really be necessary to also think of, well, how does it connect to net zero ambitions? And there I think it is very interesting to look at these regulatory incentives that can be put in place as well to avoid that net zero ambitions are used in a more opportunistic way as well. So net zero, how are they defined? How are such ambitions? How are they defined at spatial skills? At what time horizon do they take into account? What supply chains do they take into account? There's also a question of, well, what is a right level for closing the loops, and what is a right level for a net zero looping perspective of resources? Is net zero possible, or should we perhaps rather speak of minimum zero to avoid such trade-offs taking place? Does net zero, because it's if the balance is zero, it doesn't mean that there is nothing wasted or polluted or exhausted. So to what extent does a net zero perspective, does it make sense in a world increasingly trespassing planetary boundaries? Likewise, does net zero that requires or presupposes an extensive system of data collection and monitoring, data-based monitoring, evidence-based monitoring, does it make sense in a world where data is or might be increasingly incompatible, inaccessible, unreliable, given AI, for example, or considered irrelevant? And then when are right levels, when are they just? So what is a just perspective to net zero? So these questions, they are equally relevant for these net zero ambitions as they are for circularity ambitions. So what might need, instead of this data and monitoring based understanding of these two future looking pathways for spatial economic development, should we not rather turn to regenerative principles for economic development, looking, for example, at what our ecological or socio-ecological systems minimally require to be sustained over the long run, to be able to regenerate themselves and continue to offer the living conditions that we so desperately need. So that is where I would like to end my presentation. So yeah, I've shared lots of input. So I'm also curious to your questions and how this resonates with the discussion that you have been having today and yesterday already. Thank you.
Thank you greatly. This is a very interesting debate now. Yeah, I believe you opened up a lot of questions to the, I would say, for us, of course, I mean, our context is also very particular because we're experiencing Russian invasion, and thus the debates of the future are under kind of turmoil, uncertainty. Every possible kind of designation of future is the thing that looks very uncertain to us in all directions. Maybe I have two questions. If there are some others, I think I would then follow up for the audience, because I think there are really a lot of things. I know you asked a lot of questions in your presentation as well, but a few slides before, you were comparing net zero and circular economy. Maybe you can get back to it. There is like number 5, under number 5, there was a slide, previous one, I guess. Yes, this one. What I think, this one. What I think is really interesting, what you mentioned here, is that this kind of opportunistic idea that we can hang on a certain concept and embrace it while keeping on the trade-off somewhere else. In the discussion we had, I think, was it sometime this symposium, it's all coming on my mind at the same moment. There were discussions about peatlands, for instance, and also discussions about carbon credits. Yes, and today morning, another colleague showed us the ambitions of many countries around the world to deliver climate credits in other places. For instance, US trying to create afforestation in Africa, or Germany building some sort of wetland restoration projects in Asia, and so on. So I think this is a really crucial component, and this is also why I think this regional understanding is so valuable, because of course regions are usually underrepresented in debates. As cities, some kind of are more visible political actors, countries are visible political actors, but I think regions is where most of the things can be found as an economy issue, or as a kind of a social economic condition issue. So maybe you can give us something like an example about what do you understand as a sort of unopportunistic understanding of net zero on the regional level, and maybe unopportunistic understanding of circular economy. Maybe you have some sort of examples or understandings. How can we talk about it? How can we explain it to stakeholders?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think what we it's on a let me see. I'm just thinking of an appropriate example. So what we, well, perhaps this is an example again of what we shouldn't do. What we are in the Netherlands, for example, what we are busy with is on an energy level, we have formulated our national energy need and cut it up in regions, unexisting regions in any other dimension. We created energy regions administratively, and we've allocated goals to each of these regions to produce in relation to the size of the number of residents and economic activities. We've allocated a share of renewable energy that they need to produce in order to be self-sufficient. What it created was a sort of very sub-optimal. So on the one hand, this sounds reasonable and just. So within a particular region, you should be able to carry the load, make sure that you are self-sufficient, self-sustaining in terms of energy. But we have, in the Netherlands, we are, as in many other countries, there are the population is not equally distributed, and also the industrial activities are not equally distributed. So it created the reality that in the western part of our country, which is has most and most people live there, and there's a lot of industry there as well, and energy need. So in the already very densely built areas, we need to also provide a very high level of high amount of sustainable energy. At the same time, this leads to conflicts and many constatations of sustainable energy, weakening the support for sustainable energy generation. And at the same time, we see that when the discussion is then brought to, or the focus is brought to the rest of the country, which is less densely developed, but there, and then people from the western part of the country with the densely populated areas, they say, well, perhaps you should look further east because there is more space. But what then happens is that it becomes a bit of a trade-off between peoples, and then people in the east say, well, but we are already suffering from less attention, so less investments for services that we have, and you already use our region in a very extractive way in support of your Western economy in this dense part of the Netherlands. So that is an example of how such a region, if not carefully thought of, might be counterproductive in what you aim to establish.
Thank you. Other questions rising? Not yet. Think about one, please. Okay, we have one. I have one for dessert.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's really important question. I'm Yanina Basista, circular economy specialist from Ukraine. My question is more like political, philosophical, and strategic. How do you see how much time can it take to develop, to establish really a circular economy working 100% in our capitalistic world, in the world where with super huge transnational companies where the owners live in very beautiful parts or can buy their own islands and exhausting resources in other parts of the world. I just trying to connect these dots, and I see that it may take just great amount of time, and or otherwise you need to develop this new population of people, local actors, who can really fight for their rights and their local communities. But how you see this perspective? Thank you.
Yeah, it's a very good question, and perhaps the ultimate question we should be concerned with, because we can lots of the circularity ambitions, as for net zero ambitions, they are all embedded within our current capitalist way of operating, and our capitalist system doesn't take planetary boundaries into consideration. So I think we should have more reflective debates with each other within academic communities, but also political communities, on to what extent our ways of thinking of these sustainability ambitions, however you phrase them, can they be able to guide us in an evolutionary way towards an economic system, a way of living that allows us to remain within our planetary boundaries? Or do we need a more revolutionary change in which we need to reconsider our capitalist base of our economy. And I think that is a discussion for which, many people, institutions of power are not ready yet. And on a very skeptical note, but I think you are more have more right to be skeptical or are more confronted with that as well. With all our net zero ambitions, with all our circularity ambitions, if you see the massive destruction and pollution and resource use and losses and damages caused by our economies of war, it's very difficult to imagine how a war economy might eventually push us towards a sustainable economy. And at the same time, it calls for action perspectives that do show us promising perspectives also, and that is perhaps where we need to start more local. So where the localism understanding might provide an input for change and showing how it might work, feeding our imagination of what a sustainable future might look like.
We have another question from our hall, please.
Hello, thank you very much for your lecture and especially for your focus on the localism and that we have to produce and practice circular economy locally. And that made me think about all the different scales you were talking about, starting from the very local, city, territory, regional approach, national, and then global. And even thinking about sustainable transition, let's say in energy, it comes down to the question of the new resources that we need. For instance, thinking about lithium mining or some other rare earth minerals that are necessary for this transition towards electric energy, let's say. And how do you see these global trends? Because of course we cannot, let's say, mine lithium locally everywhere. And do you see it as a necessary evil, or how do we approach such a necessary resources that cannot be localized and sometimes are very destructive and extractionalist?
Yeah, it's thank you for this very good question. I think it starts with the other loops that I also indicated. So also the substitution loop. So as one of the also circularity principles is also rethink and redesign. So as long as we start designing our sustainable or less polluting alternatives based on the use of critical resources, damaging resources, resources that can be that have many geopolitical consequences, impact local communities. I think we should come to a sort of responsible innovation paradigm in which we do not start to develop such innovations at all if they are based on such critical or harmful materials that are needed. So that's but that's an easy answer as an academic. At the same time, there is this transition perspective of people saying, well, but it's a transitional risk, and we need to it's a matter of time, and then first let's switch to this resource, making use of these critical materials, because it's already less polluting, less damaging than the ones that we had. But then we come to the question, what is the lock-in that it creates and what is the damage that is created? And to what extent do we consider that allowable, fair, reasonable? And usually the sites, areas impacted by the extractions of these rare earth materials or critical materials, they are usually not the most powerful regions in the debate on this.
Thank you, Ellen, very much. We can now switch to our context in Ukraine. I ask you to stay with us. Perhaps there might be some other issues, or maybe you would like to comment on the other speaker's presentation. Yeah. But I would like now to switch on to the local part, which is an interesting case of several projects combining. We have in Ukraine two big programs called Sun for Ukraine and UCAN. And Lviv city, which we are today, is part of one of the projects related to developing a very localized, so community size. So Ellen, for you to imagine, maybe if there are no maps here, so Lviv City Council is 800,000 people approximately, maybe more, with the IDPs now counted in, but it has a size of around 170 square kilometers, so it's not very small in size. And the city, of course, includes a lot of peatlands, a lot of woodlands, but also urbanized territories. And now I invite Yurii Poliianskyi to join us, maybe this microphone, any microphone. Yes, to present the case of Lviv and their involvement in a long-term project to set up sustainability indicators and net zero targets in the city community. You're welcome.
Yes, thanks a lot. Sorry a bit for my voice. Our August weather make a bit impact for it, but I will try to be as loud as I can. So today I will try to represent you our project. The project's named UCAN towards carbon neutrality. My presentation will be something like an overall of the project, but why it works like an overall, because all of the parts of our projects is really important in case of our realization of pilots. So I will try to start from a bit description of projects, how it works, and then we'll show you pilots not only from Lviv side. On Lviv side, I will explain it more, and also other pilots, because we must understand that climate neutrality is not one part of the city. It's not only energy, or it's not only water. It's like a complex of everything. And this project can really show that this complex works. And honestly, in 2028, we want to grab a really good result on it. So if we can start, please. I have a clip. Okay, nice. So a small intro. This project comes from Call Horizon Miss 2023, which we win with our good colleagues from TUD, Technical University of Dresden, which are coordinators of our projects. Here we have 21 project partners, 10 Ukrainian partners from 8 cities. At the start of this call, we was the first consortium that wins this call. After this, European Commission also gives this opportunity for Sun for Ukraine, with which we have a really good cooperation. And I think we will have one more presentation about Sun for Ukraine, where my colleagues explain a bit more about this project, because our project is really different. It's really important to say these words now. So in case of our vision, of course, Europe now trying to give as much impact in case of European integration for Ukrainian cities as they can. And it's one of the points, climate neutrality, on which European Commission trying to help Ukrainian communities and trying to have Ukrainian cities to be more involved in European space that we have now at the moment. So, and it's really important to understand that our cooperation built on communication with climate neutrality and smart city mission cities, which are 120, as I remember, at the moment. And after this, we have a good facilitation with Ukrainian partners, because in our pilots, we presented not only by municipalities, we also presented by universities. And our main goal for all of us, of course, is to be climate neutral by 2015. not all of the cities in Ukraine at the moment give such a goal for at all in Lviv, in city councils, but Lviv trying to grab this goal, and this project I think will help to grab this goal in the future. So if you're talking about our objectives, you can see them, but the most important here it's to coming from twinning with European cities. After the twinning and understanding which part of the experience we can grab and we can involve in our cities, then we can improve on this impact our pilots. Pilots, it's the most important thing. Here we can find a typical European Commission system, work packages, and every work package work on some specific topics. And our work package on which we facilitating not only Lviv pilot, but also we are a lead of work package as a city institute and works with other communities, which I will show you in the future. It's the main work package on which we must to show impact in 2028. And which impact we must show, I will try to explain you neither. So here you can see our partners, which we have in UCAN consortium, 11 partners from 7 EU states, and of course cities from Ukraine. It's Lviv, which are represented by, Lviv, which are represented by Municipal Institution City Institute, which are a part of Lviv City Council. Ivano-Frankivsk, which are represented by an NGO Brit, Vinnytsia, which are represented also by it's not a city institute, it's really interesting because we have a lot of agencies and institutes which are in Ukraine, but all of them have a really different names, and I don't remember all of them really good. But if you're talking about Vinnytsia, Zhytomyr, Lviv, and Lviv, these cities are represented by structures which are a part of city councils. But if you're talking about Khmelnytsky and Kyiv, these two cities are represented by universities. Kyiv are represented by Kyiv Polytechnic Sikorsky University, and Khmelnytsky are represented by 2 universities, Khmelnytsky National University and Leonid Yuskov National University of Khmelnytsky. And on these organizations, at the moment, going and realizing of pilots, also you can see here 2 more cities, yes, Kharkiv and Kherson. From Kharkiv, we have Beketov University also, which help us at the moment to conduct one of the tasks of work package 4, it's the climate indicators on which we are working on. And we have also organization from Kherson, which helping us to involve in some climate goals in work package 5. Sorry. Yes, here you can see all of these organizations. And a structure, I know that it looks a bit hard, but I will try to explain it as easier as I can. So the most important, as I told, it work package 4, pilot implementation in Ukraine, supported by the European frontrunners. And we have all of these 21 partners in 7 work packages on which we're trying to work and which we're trying to find the best cooperation for the end goal to find the climate neutrality and to be as much involved in European space as we can. So if we're talking about twinning with Ukraine and European Union cities, on one of our meetings which we have in Dresden, we have a cooperation with such cities which are interested to be and to help in case of UCAN project. And here you can say, you can see on red ones, Leipzig and Saloniki is 2 cities with which we are working now as Lviv, because as Oleksandr said, it will be really good to explain Lviv side. And I can just say that with Leipzig, we are now working in case of positive energy districts, because before we have a really good cooperation in Sparks projects. It's also a project from Horizon program called Community, and we're trying to grab our experience from this from project of Sparks and make it in the future in case of some UK insights, because when it's really important to show impact. All of these projects, it's research projects, and it's hard sometimes to show really huge and to show really like a hard impact. And our goal now is to trying to find as as many opportunities as we can, also from from other projects, to make one impact in the future. And Leipzig help us in this topic, which are working with PADs, positive energy districts, and city of Thessaloniki. I have also good experience to be there, and they have a really good system of that's named Enigma. It's a system of calculation of CO2 from all of the branches of the cities. At the moment, it's my big dream to have such a system in Ukraine. At the moment, in Lviv, we have only such a system which calculates CO2 from the transport, from public transport and from transport, which works on Lviv Communal Enterprise, Lviv Autodor. But in the future, I'm trying to find a really good cooperation with Department of Ecology to bring it in our city and to make an impact on data, because always, as I think in your cities, it's the same data. It's one of the biggest problems to collect data, to find the data. And these projects, research projects, they really helps also to make such as storages, to make some digital twins on which we can provide some data, which are really important. Yes, if we are talking about our pilots, you can see a lot of pilots here. Just for your understanding why I show such a big amount of pilots, it's all of the pilots of our cities. Just for your understanding that climate neutrality, it's not only like energy and it's not only European integration. Here you can find urban gardening models, floating power plants that are organizing in Zhytomyr, Tezhilivka revitalization that are organizing in Vinnytsia. Tezhilivka is one of the part of Pivdennyi Bug river. Photovoltaic installation in public buildings in Ivano-Frankivsk, etc. So this complex, and I think it was one of the reasons why this project was successful in the European Commission, because we have a complex of all, and it's really important to understand that that climate neutrality can be solved only in complex. If we're talking about Lviv, as I thought, positive energy district technologies, it's one of our main pilots. What we see here. At the moment, we find the best option for us. We have two branches here. We're working on municipal energy plan and want to grab the biggest impact as we can for our communal enterprises, and one-stop shop system on which we can help for our citizens to involve in case of what is it, positive energy district, how it works, to which people you can go when you have a connection in city council, to which people you can go and have a connection in some NGOs, etc. It's really important because citizens at the moment, they don't really understand what it is, and it's important to have such organization which will help, organization office doesn't matter, on which people will help to grab them to right people, and they will have a good conversation and they said, okay, it's really important, and in the future, for me, it's better to use some technologies which will improve the concept of positive energy district. And office in Brussels, it's a really interesting story because it starts when we are working on this call, we find that it will be really important to open in Lviv Bureau of Euro integration, but something like in European Commission, the period of understanding that call is going on goes for half a year, and on this time, Bureau of Euro integration was established in the city, and it works. So we understand that this task is not really reliable, and we find also the second part of this task was office in Brussels, and a lot of people also in communities ask me why office in Brussels is really important in case of climate neutrality. And I'm explaining because when you are in Brussels, of course is the center of communication. Yes, there are European Commission, European Union structures, big research centers, NGOs, etc. They all are located there. And when you are in the process, when you have a really good connection, you can have a communication offline, not online. All of us understand when you have a communication offline, it's much better than you have a calls. For me, it always looks and works better. You can find more opportunities for the city, you can find more investments, and all of these opportunities and investments then can go to grab a status of climate neutrality in our city. So it's really important also pilot on which we are working, and we really want to develop it as much as we can in our future. There have also some envisioned outputs from our projects that you can see. From my side, I can just say that it's accelerator. It's an accelerator of European organizations. It's accelerator of universities, of municipalities from Ukraine and from abroad, from European Union. And for us now, really important to have this communication, to grab this experience, because a lot of communities, they are not really involved and they're not trying to push the theme of climate. But we must understand that, okay, war will go maybe, I don't know for how long time, but it ends. This time will come, and from this time we must to work with this because it's a really important topic. And you can see some problems with weather, etc., floodings, all of that coming now, and we must work from 2025, from 2020 even for this topic. And because if we want to be successful in 2015, we must work now, and it's really important to start this work in communities as fast as we can. So thanks a lot for your attention, and if you have some questions, please.
Yeah,
I'm open for them.
Thank you, Yurii, very much. I maybe have one brief question, but then we will need to head over to our colleague that we have online. I think we just had some sort of technical hiccup with the time in France and Ukraine. But Yurii, would you say regarding the Ellen's input, how do you feel intersection of circular economy and climate neutrality goals that you want to achieve in Lviv? What is the point of connection, and how do you think Lviv should take on the learnings maybe or the ideas that Ellen has showed to us?
Sorry. If we're talking about circular economy, of course, it's a really big part of climate neutrality, and everyone understands this. At the moment, I see that Lviv community works with this, trying to work really well. We have one more project on which we are working with war debris in Hostomel, Bucha, and Borodyanka. And in Lviv also, we, of course, this impact goes for these cities, but we're grabbing experience and we're trying to bring this experience for our community and to find some options from this project and realized in future. And it also will help in case of climate neutrality because we have a lot of problems with circularity. We must work with this. I'm not really expert on this field. I can be really deep, but of course, it's one of the parts that are really important. And I understand that in my agenda as a manager who are working for such a goals for the city, I understand that it's one of the important parts on which I will work in the future to help a departments to help city council to be more related and more sustainable in case of this part, because not in every city council we have some departments which are more developed and some departments that are less developed. And in this part, I understand that all of the department must be developed on one level, and circular economy is one of the parts which need to be more developed, and we try to do our best in this part.
Thank you very much, Yurii. Dear André, do you hear us? Can you switch on your camera?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. So Professor André Torre from University of Paris Saclay, I hope we can find enough time for your presentation now. Can you show the screen? Our technical team will put it on.
Of course. So thank you very much. I will try to upload it to share. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, I guess you can see it now.
Yes,
Okay.
perfect. So we will wrap up this session with the input from André Torre regarding coming back to geography. We started with geography, we are moving back to geography. About where do we also find the impacts and conclusions from the attempted or desired transition to net zero and circular economy. So André, over to you.
Thank you very much. So first, many thanks for the invitation. I'm really happy to be with you and to can present a exchange with you. So I will try to speak about circular economy. So I guess you had already several discussions about that and also about the need for circular economy. Just to start with and to have a look at the main topic. We are in a situation of climate change with global warming, reduction of biodiversity, and the loss of available land to cultivate as well. A lot of impact on resources, and this climate change brings several environmental issues that affect the economy locally. Water shortage, the changes of agricultural production, desertification, diffusion of new illness, the loss of biodiversity. So there are a lot of impact at the local level, but these impacts are not only physical, but they are also on socio-economic type, because this climate change also raise question in terms of well-being of local population, and also it lead to the displacement of population, and also it has an impact on ecosystems with the development of human activities and the exploitation of natural resources. So we are all asking or claiming for solutions to reconcile the adaptation to climate change on one hand and a kind of economic development, if I can say, on the other hand. And of course, there could be a kind of potential conflict between sustainable development goals, mainly in terms of public policies and also in terms of profitability. So what could be the solution? I guess that modest but reasonable solution could be find in circular economy, and I will try to develop it, and especially to try to show you that the local level is really crucial for circular economy and for sustainable development. So let's start with circular economy. What is circular economy? So there are many definitions of them. So KhSA and et al. Identified more than 100. So mainly it is opposed to the linear economy, which is based on the pattern of extract, manufacture, consume, and throw away. And circular economies try to put and to keep products, components, and material alive in circulation for as long as possible, and then to try to recover a part of the waste and turn it into a resource. So mainly it looks like that when you have a loop with design, production, distribution, consumption. You try to reduce the level of consumption, and then to as far as possible to reinject it into the production with so-called repair, reuse, and recycle paradigm, the 3R, but there can be many other types of R. But anyway, the idea is that one. And of course, you know that it's considered, or it was considered, I would say, as a part of the European development projects and focus, and especially about the so-called Green Deal, where circular economy action plan was a really crucial part of the European Green Deal. So this circular economy has obviously a very important local, territorial, regional, let's say, component. Otherwise, if it's not localized, if it's not grounded, it is not virtuous. Because if the circular loop is not local, for example, if the resources are imported and travel a long way, and travel and circulate all over the world. If the recycling process is made in other area, like it is done today, nowadays, for example, for habits, for clothes, which are recycled mainly in Africa, in Ghana, if you do that, the circular economy is not virtuous. It could be circular, it could circulate around the planet, but not there will be a contradiction between this circularity and the sustainable development goals. On the other hand, the local circular economy has an important economic potential in terms of job creation, most of all, and there are several studies I made myself and my colleagues, several studies which show that the local impact of circular economy is very important in the EU countries. And when you compare circular economy with the non-circular economy, I will say linear one, it's obvious that the potential of circular economy is more important in terms of creation of jobs. So I will claim for the territorialization of circular economy and a territorialization of circular economic public policies. But of course, one has to remind that it depends on the territories, and not the territories are not all equal in face of circular economy, of course. When we come to the local level, there is an important literature about local and collaborative solutions of circular economy, especially regarding industrial ecosystems, with the idea to have systems which got or will try to mitigate or to get closer to natural ecosystems, and they try to operate and to reverse the image of industrial activities having negative impacts on the environment, with cities like Dunkirk, for example, and also the so-called example of eco-industrial parks, and especially, I will come just now with the Kalundborg symbiosis, with the idea of recycling materials and waste, local energy flows, cooperation, and trust between actors. So this is a picture of the so-called Kalundborg symbiosis, a very, very famous example in Denmark. And the idea is you see that, first, it is localized, it is a local systems, which very, very close geographical borders, but within these borders, there are different types of exchanges between firms, between labs, between different types of local operators, and I can say more or less that the output of one operator is the input of the other one, and there is a circulation of goods, reused goods, and energy within this local system. So we have this kind of we have this kind of circulation, but usually when it comes to these systems, mainly people or literature is dealing with the flow, local flows of goods, local flows of energy, recycling goods, and so on. But there is also a very, very important and crucial socio-economic components. So there are socio-economic roots in terms of cooperation and trust between local actors, the sharing of values between those people, and also sophisticated methods of coordination and organization at the local level. So all of them, they come with a strong geographical proximity. So this means that, for example, if we look at the Kalundborg symbiosis, there are not only circulation, there's not only circulation of goods and energy, but also, and I put them here in red, the network of collaboration and organization between local entrepreneurs and innovative firms as well. So this is this idea of a local system, and this is the idea that we developed with Sébastien Bourdin in a recent paper in Economic Geography, with this idea of territorial circular ecosystems, and which are systems involving local actors like authorities, firms, intermediary, research, civil society, also resources with local material flows, knowledge, flows on knowledge and skills, infrastructures, financial tools, and also, of course, institutions with policies and legal frameworks, local governance model, norms, cultural norms, incentive systems. So all these situations, all these different types of items are found together in a local system. And just to finish, just to give you a very, very rapid example, it's the one of a local system that we studied in France, the circular economy and circular ecosystem. It's about methanation. What is methanation? So that's a very, very obvious, straightforward, and practical application of circular economy. So it's when you have waste, they could come from the city, they could come from agriculture, or both together. And the idea is that you put them in a biogas reactor, and then by this you transform this waste, and you transform a part of them. A part of them is transformed into energy, like heating power, gas, biofuel, and the complement, if it comes from agriculture, could be put on land in order to feed land and to feed the soil. So this is the local system of methanation in Cavigny, in France. It's in Normandy, and you see here it's a kind of very small local ecosystem. When you have first the transformation of the goods, of the outputs and the waste locally into energy and digestate, and also you have into this system you have the arrival of lorries and car and trucks full of waste, and on the other hand there is also the circulation out of the system of trucks with and links with energy. So here is the situation. I don't want to make any comment, but that's an analysis in terms of social network. And this, you have the evolution of material and energy exchanges between 2010 and 2020, and mainly with two main types of actors: farmers and also decision-making bodies and waste treatment plants. And you have those and local authorities, and you have this situation and its evolution. So you were able to identify the main actors into the system, but I will not comment it. And this is the other part of the system, like I show you in Kalundborg. This is the communication and exchanges networks. And you see that there are more actors. Previously, you have green and red actors. Now we have local actors, main actors, which are the state technical services, and also in yellow, a local as an association of local residents, because there is an involvement of local population into this network, and local people need to be involved into the process. Otherwise, they could oppose to it, and they could some problems, some conflicts could be raised locally. So some conclusions, very, very briefly now. First conclusion is that mainly circular economy could be a part of a solution and also a resource for territorial development. It's a modest but pragmatic and efficient solution. It's also a resource at the local level and for local authorities. Circular economy is regarding as a strategic objective because it allows for improving productivity and resource efficiency, enhancing local growth potential, implementing different types of innovation, and also creating new activities that provide jobs and wealth. But if we have to think about these local systems of circular economy, this territorial circular economy system, we have to focus on the crucial role of cooperative behaviors at three levels. The first level is the technical level, the level of cooperation between firms and productive actors. They have to share the same practices, the good practices, and also the new innovation in order to be involved into circular economy development. Second one is the cooperation and exchange between those actors in order to collaborate, to coordinate these projects. And it's not only the firms, but it's also the institution and so on. And the last level is the cooperation with the local populations in order to avoid conflict and opposition. If we put all those things together, in the end, there are some solutions which raise in order to develop a kind of reasonable, sustainable, territorial development. So thank you very much, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you greatly. We'll now take 2 questions because we are a little bit out of schedule.
Ну, в мене не питання, в мене є...
Do you hear interpretation? Mr. Torre, do you hear interpretation?
Можна? Ще раз?
Yes, can you speak?
В мене є не питання, в мене є коротке.
I have a comment, actually, not a question.
André, can you choose a translation in Zoom? There should be some button, like a translation button in the Zoom.
Well,
in the menu underneath, like a black panel in the Zoom, there should be a globe or earth with the translation. Or if there is none, I can just translate it physically in English.
I don't find it. No.
This is a comment, not a question. I have heard an approach such as creation of local system of circular economy. But in my opinion, this is the false approach.
So the point is that there might be some issues regarding the creation of localization economy. So this is a comment from our participant.
It is understandable that there is no local autonomous economy. The economy of each city is very much integrated into general economy, global economy. Therefore, we cannot talk about local economy as such.
So the issue is whether there is anything like a local economy at all, if it's so integrated in the regional and national level and the international flow of goods and services.
And in case we create a local system of circular economy, it will prevent us from implementation of such mechanisms as expanded responsibility of a manufacturer and other things.
So there are kind of national levels issues related to the deposit schemes for large producers or issues with
Депозитна поворотна система DRS.
And sustainable producer responsibility that extends towards broader systems.
Дякую.
So whether you think there is a contradiction, André, and how it can be resolved.
Okay, thank you very much for this question. It's a very important question, right? That's a question of incentives. Because for big firms, which are involved in the circulation at the international level, if they have to invest into circular economy, they will respond to incentives. If there are no main big incentives, they will not come into that. So that's important for them to enter into circular economy if they find advantages, if they find benefits to do that. So if there are incentives to do, they will do it, and they do them. What are the kind of incentives? There can be some helps, there can be some tax subsidies, there can also be some advantages to be localized in terms of land, of renting, for example. But I will say most of all, the idea is to help them to enter into this system. So this means that these incentives are not to be only financial, but there are also the need for incentives to organize and to cooperate locally. This means that there is a need for development of local systems of help for firms to collaborate locally. You cannot do circular economy alone. It's not impossible usually for a single firm to do circular economy alone at the local level, where there is a need of cooperation between different firms. So you need to develop local systems and local incentives to incite firms to collaborate locally.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we are out of time on this session, so I'll just give a very brief summary of what we discussed, and also invite our colleagues to stay for the session after lunch. So we started this broadly this session with kind of the thinking of whether there is a need for space for circular economy, and I think everybody agrees there is a need to spatialize our understanding that circular economy doesn't happen in vacuum, and we need to see the borders of when we talk about spatial economy, not in abstract ways, but where we're talking about it nationally, regionally, on the city level. And this is also what André says, that the preconditions for such a circular economy is the cooperation between actors that know the purposes and that they have a definitive economic incentives to join the forces towards local economy. And also, I think in the images there was a highlighted that in many cases, local authorities take the lead in creating regulations and creating constraints that enable such projects, which is of ultimate concern also for projects, I think, in Lviv, where the city can take a lead in enabling some sort of cooperation and furthering cooperation with neighboring cities and communities that are part of the Lviv agglomeration, for instance, and in similar cases in other parts of Ukraine. So we also had a presentation about the ambitions of Lviv to join the carbon neutrality by 2050 agenda, and I think there will be more projects that will require a dense and interlinked cooperation between the city, the businesses, parts of civil society, and also experts. And I think it's important maybe to find bridges between the circular economy needs, which showcase the need for space, and maybe then the abstract and somehow like a very high lying net zero ambitions will also become more visual, more pragmatic, more pertinent to our spatial dimension. So thank you all for participation for the session. We will be running for lunch. We'll start the next session 10 minutes late. So we'll start it. Sorry, had the program 1 second. We will start it 2 o'clock, 10 past 2. So thank you again, and see you. Please don't be late. Our Maria, I see she's already not happy with my decision, but we need to have lunch. So please don't be really late. 10 minutes past 2, we are here. Thank you.